Hey people, you said you'd tolerate watching me do appallingly at some game whilst I talk at you. And so here is some random game. It is Bastion. It will be in the description if you want to go buy it. And I recently finished playing this game on what is one of the worst days of my life that I can remember. Definitely recently. It was earlier in the week. It was Tuesday, the day I was supposed to be streaming on the Game Mode 4 server, because patrons had been wonderful and put together a surprise for me, Sparks and Spider. Surprise stream treasure hunty thing, me giving clues leading up to it, and I'd been really looking forward to it. And I'd had a shitty day. I'd kind of got back into a reasonable mood, was preparing to stream, and 10 minutes before we were due to go live, just as I was setting everything up, I found out my cat was dead. Snowflake. Those of you who have been following the channel for a while will probably know I was very fond of Snowflake. If you look at Twitter, in fact, and all the tweets that I've sent out, probably over half of the tweets that I have sent, and when I say I've sent, I mean the ones that not Sparks has sent, over half of them have been talking about my cat, Snowflake.
Turns out Queen Anne got a hold of a shard.
He was my first ever pet, and he followed me home 9 months ago on a cold February day. I think I was even due to be recording or streaming that day. But yeah, I miss that cat. Today's the first day I've had off. Well, yesterday was the first day I'd had off work since he died. And I've spent the whole day just listening out for little jingles and sort of seeing shadows out of the corner of my eye, thinking that that's him doing something, or staring at like the bottom right hand corner or bottom left hand corner of the back door where he'd usually stand. His little eyes would be wanting to come in and have some food, because that's what he does or did. He's not. He's now buried in the garden under a tree. One consolation, whatever I said, the one small positive in this sad negative was that he had a relatively quick death. He was hit by a car, and while it's not, I'd rather he hadn't died, and it's not an amazing way to go. It's probably better than dying of some sort of slow, painful thing, or starving to death 9 months ago that he'd have probably otherwise have done if he had not followed me home. So that's the one small consolation I have. Yeah, it's sad. There are series on this channel that have been going on longer than I've had that cat. I'm thinking particularly of Nino Cooney, who, which is coming up to a year old. So yes, if you're expecting a nice, heartwarming, fun-filled video, this is not what you're really getting. It's me sort of just talking through the fact that my cat's dead. But I did say it was going to be more for me than for anyone else if I did these videos. Yeah. I feel quite bad as well, because, like I said, a lot of the patrons of the server got together and been working for a couple of weeks on doing this treasure hunty thing surprise for me, Sparks and Spider, and then 10 minutes before, in fact it wasn't even 10 minutes before it's supposed to go live, I didn't end up telling them till about, it was supposed to go live about 5:30, it was I think just after 5:30, where I just posted a message in the chat saying that I couldn't make it because my cat just died, and I mean they were understanding, and I did get some Skype messages of sympathy from several people, but it was just shitty timing really. And in many ways it sort of, he was a cat that was loved by all, which in some ways is even worse. Like, even my dad warmed to him, my dad being someone who doesn't understand the point of things that are living unless they can be eaten, and that's in terms of both plants and animals. And yet, even he found this cat quite adorable. Which is, on one hand, very sweet that I'm getting all these nice things from people with their sympathy. It's at this point mostly down to random family members who are a bit further away. But yeah, in other ways it's a bit of a pain because it's just a constant reminder of how wonderful this little cat was. And I miss him. I miss him a lot. He was my first ever pet. And he's, to this day, my only pet that I've ever had. And while in many ways it was really inconvenient to be looking after a pet at this time in my life, it sort of worked, even if it meant having to go out of my way every now and then to make sure that he was fed and let in and out of the house. But in other ways, he was the most stable thing. Well, not stable, the most consistent thing in my life over the last couple of months, when everything else was sort of weird and changing and various other things happening. It was just there, wanting simple things like food, or to be played with, or to be stroked, or to sit on a nice warm lap. And he was by far my favourite member of the household. Despite not speaking English, he made it very clear what he wanted, more clear than anyone else. He seemed to have a better idea of what he wanted more than anyone else. He seemed to have life sussed more than anyone else. And despite the fact he did like to bite and scratch, he caused me less pain than anyone else. He also made the least mess. He was probably the tidiest. Moaned the least. Yeah. Basically, he was the best member of the family.
And now he's made her mad.
And I then completed the rest of this game after I'd found out he died and didn't really know what I was to do with myself. It was kind of a bittersweet ending, which kind of worked well for the mood that I was in.
Hope Queen Anne don't mind us borrowing from her treasury.
I do remember one time
All that trouble for a single
with Snowflake,
shard, but you know
him
what?
being all adorable.
It's worth it.
We bought him some catnip, and that was in like a little bag that so we'd give him a little bit of occasionally.
But that's the greatest
And
forge in all the city.
contrary to the general stereotype of what people often associate catnip with, like a cat equivalent of weed, which weed in general sort of makes people chill and relaxed, and
To fix a brusher's bike, you just need a good
that can
weed
make
and
them
a hang
paranoid
bar.
as well, but it, in general, is more of a chilled out, relaxy drug. Unlike something like
Don't want that big
speed
weed
or
in your
cocaine
hands
or something
until
like that,
it's
which makes
satisfied.
everyone a lot more hyperactive and energetic and whatnot. Also, I've been told by some bloke down the pub whose brother had read these things in an article somewhere that he'd found left on a train. Honest. Yeah, no, it's catnip to cats does make them hyperactive, running around everywhere. We gave him a bit once, he went crazy, and then a couple of days later, he was going manically crazy. What's wrong with him? What's he doing? Does he want to get? Is he desperate to go outside or something? Or does he? He didn't particularly seem to want to go outside, and when we offered him outside, he would sort of run outside a bit, and run back in. And then we was like, okay, what's happened? And we went into one of the rooms, which happened to be the room where we kept the catnip, and he had managed to pull down the bag onto the floor, tear it open, and have about half of the catnip in this bag. I don't know if cats can overdose on catnip, but he had had a hell of a lot of it, given that usually you just gave him like a little pinch of it on his food,
The next shard
and
is
he had
farther out there in the wild.
had like maybe half a bag, and that bag was like the size of like a palm.
Oh, how Ceylandia became the richest city in the world.
Quite a big bag
Point Lemaine.
for a little cat who was only like 2 or 3 palms big. And he went hyperactive and mental for ages, did some silly things, and then fell asleep for hours.
The army's
It
troops
was
once had the place on lockdown.
somewhat annoying at the time, but in retrospect it was actually quite funny. And he was adorable. And I'm going to miss him. I'm going to greatly miss him.
Blam. Just like my fighting days.
Anyway,
Like that can even look wild and shit.
I think that is everything that I particularly wanted to say. There will be a link to this game in the description. It is a very good game, despite the fact I'm now probably going to associate it with horrible memories.
Days for sure. But it ain't
But it's well worth playing. I do thoroughly recommend it. I will see you in another video, which will hopefully be a bit more upbeat, light-hearted and entertaining,
full place shutters.
so on and so forth. See you next time.